I used to do modern dance when I was in high school. This doesn't have anything to do with my sermon. The whole album, we had albums back in the olden days, and I would create dances for each one of the songs, and I was kind of reliving that in my head as I was listening to the song. Thank you very much. That was a blessing. Pride and presence, not pride and prejudice, pride and presence. One of the basic tenets of Christianity is that God saves and delivers people from destruction, harm, and danger. And throughout the Bible, God defends those who are oppressed, and God expects people throughout all ages to do the same. Now, oppression during the Old Testament times was as prevalent as it is today. People of the ancient Near East were subject to enslavement, victims of false accusations, and often suffered when secular and religious leaders failed to provide justice. Throughout the Bible and throughout history, we learn that humans oppress others in order to maintain their own greed, power, and control. Amen. If you ever watch any of the some of the historical dramas like Queen Elizabeth, or the Tudors, or the Borgias, or anything, you really learn and see how the common people, the poor folk, were really oppressed by those who had the power and the wealth. Among all the stories of oppression that one finds in the Old Testament, also called the Hebrew Bible, God continually references the deliverance of Israel from Egyptian bondage to demonstrate why God defends the oppressed and expects God's people to do the same. Now, after the death of Joseph and his generations, the Israelites had become so great in number that the Egyptian leaders felt threatened by the potential loss of power and control. So they began to weaken the Israelites by forcing them into slavery and limiting their population by killing their male children. When the children of Israel began to cry out to God in their oppression, God comes to their rescue. God raises up Moses, and throughout the plagues that Moses brings upon the Egyptians, they use up all of their political, economic, and military resources to try to maintain their superior status. Now, the Hebrew slaves were still too scared and weak to defend themselves. But Yahweh, God's mighty power, fights victoriously on their behalf. After securing their freedom, God brought them to a land where they could begin a new life. And it took them 40 years to get there. That's because Moses didn't want to ask directions, as I said. I think it was a time of teaching people. And Jesus says to the religious people, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty or stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you? Now, Jesus had just gotten through describing the hardships that people experience. He talked about the poor, the sick, those who were in prison, those who were strangers, those who were aliens. And that's when the religious leaders of the time said, well, we didn't see you that way, God. And individuals in such circumstances are always vulnerable. They are often subject to abuse and often neglected by those in authority. So Jesus spoke out quite a bit about those that failed to feed the poor, to visit those in prison, to care for those who are sick, to speak up for those who are oppressed, to not welcome the aliens. The children of God are called to care for others, just as God cared for the enslaved Israelites in Egypt. When Jesus sent out the 70 to minister to others, he told them to heal the sick and preach the gospel, to act and to proclaim. As disciples of Christ, they were called to minister to the whole person, including both spiritual and physical needs of the people that they would encounter. As followers of Christ, we are called to not only care for the oppressed, but also to identify with them. As the religious leaders seemed to deny that they had ever seen Jesus suffering, he made it clear that when you ignore others who are in pain, you are in fact ignoring him. God is always on the side of those who are oppressed, those who are considered the least of these, those who are the most vulnerable. And God raises up people who are willing to step out in faith and speak out against oppression. There are many heroes who have helped pave the way for where we are today, if you identify as an LGBTQ person. We have come a long way. We have marriage equality. Many of us are safe in the workplace, our schools. As we celebrate Pride this month, it's an opportunity to remember those who are brave enough to pave the road for us. Kittredge Cherry, a lesbian Christian author, has done extensive writing to document people who have worked for equality. And if you want to go do some research on some of the saints we've been talking about, go to Q Spirit. It's called Q, just Google Q Spirit. So I'm going to tell you about a couple of other people. We heard about two today, and I had never heard about Polly Murray. I thought that was a fascinating story. In Russia, there's a Saint Boris. And as protests and boycotts are growing over Russia's new anti-LGBTQ laws, saints such as Saint Boris are more important than ever in Russian history. The love between Boris, one of the oldest and most popular saints in Russia, and George the Hungarian ended in tragedy in the year 1015 in medieval Russia. Now, Boris and his younger brother, Gleb, are well-known saints in Russia, and they are often pictured together, and many churches are named after them. But Boris had someone he loved. He called him his beloved, George the Hungarian. And George the Hungarian was never canonized and has mostly been ignored until just recently. Now, Boris was a prince and a gifted military commander who was popular with the Russian people. He was married, but he had enormous love for his servant, George the Hungarian. Joan of Arc. How many people have heard of wonderful Joan of Arc? Now, she was a tough, cross-dressing teenage warrior who led the medieval French army to victory when she was only 17. She is one of our queer icons, a girl power hero and a patron saint of France. Smart and courageous Joan of Arc had visions of saints and angels who told her to cut her hair, put on men's clothes, and go to war. At age 18, she helped crown a king, and at 19, she was killed by the church that would later make her a saint. She died for her God-given right to wear men's clothing, the crime for which she was executed. Fanny Ann Eady was a major activist for LGBT rights in her native Sierra Leone and the rest of Africa. She was murdered in September of 2004, and as of yet, nobody has been ever convicted of this crime. She founded the Sierra Leone Lesbian and Gay Association in 2002 and advocated for LGBTQ rights at the United Nations. Her organization documented harassment, beatings, and arbitrary arrest of her people in her country. In 2004, she spoke to the UN Commission on Human Rights, telling them that there are LGBTQ people throughout Africa, but that they are living in fear. And her tragically prophetic words, she told them, "We live in fear within our communities where we face constant harassment and violence from neighbors and others. Their homophobic attacks go unpunished by authorities, further encouraging their discriminatory and violent treatment of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people." Edie was working alone at night in the Freetown offices of the Sierra Leone Lesbian and Gay Association when one or more attackers broke in and killed her. She is survived by her 10-year-old son and her girlfriend, Esther. Edie's final words to the United Nations still resound today. Silence creates vulnerability. You, members of the Commission on Human Rights, can break this silence. You can acknowledge that we exist throughout Africa and on every continent, and that human rights violations based on sexual orientation or gender identity are committed every day. You can help us combat those violations and achieve our full rights and freedoms in every society, including my beloved Sierra Leone. John Boswell, anybody read any of his books? He was a prominent scholar who researched and wrote about the importance of gays and lesbians in Christian history. He was born in March of 1947 and was a history professor at Yale University when he wrote one of his influential classics, Christianity, Social Tolerance, and Homosexuality, and another one he wrote was Same-Sex Unions in Pre-Modern Europe. John Boswell converted from the Episcopal Church of his upbringing to become a Roman Catholic at age 16. He attended Mass every day until his death, even though as an openly gay Christian, he disagreed with the church teachings on homosexuality. He helped found the Yale Lesbian and Gay Studies Center in the late 1980s. He was considered a linguistic genius, and he used his knowledge of more than 15 languages to argue that the Roman Catholic Church did not condemn homosexuality until at least the 12th century. Using some of his last strength as he battled AIDS, Boswell translated many rights in his book, Same-Sex Unions, presenting evidence that there were same-sex unions that were similar to marriage during those early days. Boswell died an untimely death at the age of 47 from AIDS-related illness on Christmas Eve of '94. He remains an unofficial saint to many LGBTQ Christians who find life-giving spiritual value in his historical research that affirms queer people have been in Christian history. Boswell is buried beside his longtime partner, Jerome Hart, at Grove Street Cemetery in New Haven, Connecticut, with the caption, "Partners in life, for life." And their shared headstone is shaped to look like a book, and an inscription reads, "To live in one's memory is never to die." These were just ordinary people doing extraordinary things because God called them to it. God gave them the courage, the wisdom, the strength to step up and to step out in faith and do what seemed to be the impossible. In our reading today from the prophet Isaiah, we heard, "Do not let the foreigner joined to the Lord say, 'God will surely separate me from God's people.' And do not let the eunuch say, 'I am just a dry tree.'" Reverend Elder Nancy Wilson has written extensively about eunuchs, and we're going to be discussing that, this is a commercial break here, at our workshop on July 15th, and I encourage you to come to that and get empowered. It'll be from 10 a.m. till noon. It'll be an important workshop to kind of enlighten you, and there's just so much information in the superhighway of the World Wide Web. You can find almost anything on there that talks about this. God has called each one of us to be a voice, to be a presence to our community. I know many of you sitting in this room today have dedicated much of your lives to be a voice of truth, to be a shoulder someone can cry on, to speak your truth in love to those who are just coming out or who are afraid. And for that, I give you thanks. We continue to listen to God's call to be present with all those who are oppressed, not just the LGBTQ community, but those who are called immigrants, the Muslim community, people of color, the poor, the social outcasts, those with mental illness, the list goes on and on. In the book of Hebrews, which is one of the first books I studied when I started preparing for ministry, in chapter 11, it's a great chapter and it lists all these heroes. It's called the Hall of Faith. People in the Bible who had faith and endured hardships and continued to speak out and to rise above their circumstances and be a voice for God. And in Hebrews 12, it kind of sums it all up, and I'm going to read to you this. This is one of the verses I memorized it. I had to memorize, my teacher was from the old school, and he had us memorize just all these Bible verses. We had to repeat them back or write them down. This one is a modern translation. It's from the Message. So after that great Hall of Faith, when he talks about Abraham and Moses and all the others, the writer of Hebrews says, "Do you see what this means? All those pioneers who blazed the way, all these veterans cheering us on. It means we better get on with it. Strip down, start running, and never quit. No extra spiritual fat, no parasitic sins. Keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished this race that we are in. Study how he did it, because he never lost sight of where he was headed. That exhilarating finish in and with God. He could put up with anything along the way. The cross, shame, whatever. And now he's there in the place of honor, right alongside our God. When you find yourselves flagging in your faith, go over that story again, item by item. That long litany of hostility that Jesus plowed through, that will shoot adrenaline into your souls. There is still much work to be done. May we be a faith community that is present to those who face oppression, who have no voice, as we speak our truth in love. Will you pray with me, please? Beloved God, we thank you for the pioneers who have gone before us, who sacrificed their lives, who gave so much to be a voice of truth. We ask, oh God, that you continue to raise up people who can be a voice, people who can be compassionate and caring, people who want to speak up for social justice. We thank you for the heroes among us today, oh God, for those people who have dedicated their lives to serve you and to be a voice of love and truth for your people. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you.